Welcome to Prestige Worldwide, the podcast, a weekly battle of wits, debating everything from horseshoes to hand grenades, all for the privilege to be called right. And now, your hosts, Bobo and Travis.
Hey guys, welcome to Prestige Worldwide, the podcast. I am your host, Travis. Thank you for listening and joining me again. It's a little weird doing this on my own at this point because normally we would do a little bit of banner here, a witty banner, hopefully, and it gets us kind of warmed up to, doing the rest of the episode. But when you're all by yourself, it's just a little weird trying to do some witty banner. So I'm just going to jump into it, I suppose. Today's episode is called Boob, the episode, and the reason I'm doing this, it's the fall season. And the TV networks are putting out all their new shows. So I thought I would kind of highlight some of my recent watchings for TV. I never really got to do this because Bobo doesn't really stay up on TV. Actually, he doesn't watch nearly as much TV as I do. Apparently, in doing this and talking with other people, I have come to realize that I watch probably more TV than most, I guess. Most of my friends, at least. So I'm going to go through some of the stuff I've been watching, and some of it's new, some of it's not. I kind of feel with TV nowadays, I don't really watch something right from the get-go, right from when it starts, because I kind of give it a little time to see if other people are watching it and to see if it's worth my time. I don't know if other people are that way, but like the first show that I kind of want to talk about, it's not new. It's on its second season. It's This Is Us. Perfect example. So Mandy and I decided to watch it after we saw all the acclaim last year, and we got into it late, which was nice because we were able to binge watch it and largely watch it without commercials, because watching live TV, especially network TV, fucking sucks. I know commercials are a necessary evil, but it's funny to watch Mandy and I as we're watching TV, because as soon as a commercial comes, our phones are right in our hand because we don't pay attention to them. We just do whatever, we want. We look at other stuff on our phones during the commercials, as I'm sure most people do. But I got to tell you, as cheesy as this fucking show looks, This Is Us, it is a fantastic show. And one of the things that really does kind of irritate me about the show is there is a point in, I think, every episode where I either tear up or not either. I tear up. I don't know what it is. I don't know why they're so good at what they do, but it really does tug it at my heartstrings for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know if some of it's the music that they pick. It really, I don't know. I hate to use this. It speaks to me. But it really is. It's a good show. It's a great show. I don't know. I know it's not for everybody. I know it's kind of it's funny. It's a drama. If you haven't watched it, if you haven't heard of it, I can't help you, because I'm surprised this show is beloved by everyone. So I'm not really saying anything new, and I'm not really going to spend a whole lot of time on it. But it really is remarkable how much this show makes you cry or tear up at the very least, or at least just feel feelings. I know a lot of people like myself, tend to shut off feelings from time to time, get through this crazy world, but this one really brings it back home, and I tell you, it's a great show. So if you haven't watched it, go give it a shot, and if you don't like it, just tell me how fucking wrong I am. Anyways, I'm going to move on to the next one. The other show that I've been watching lately is the new Ken Burns documentary, The Vietnam War. I will say, going into this documentary, I knew very little about the Vietnam War. I mean, I knew, what everybody else knows, but I didn't know a lot because I wasn't there, man. I didn't know, I didn't know what it was like. But going into this, it really is a long form, and I will say it's long form. Every episode is at least an hour and a half to 2 hours long, and there's 10 episodes of it. But it goes into the whole history. It goes into why we were there, goes into what kept us there, because we were actually involved with Vietnam for a lot longer than I knew. And it is kind of remarkable as you as you watch this documentary, you'll kind of, if you know anything about the history of Iraq or the history of Afghanistan and how Osama bin Laden came to power and all that kind of stuff, it is very similar to what happened in Vietnam. It seems like the U.S. just keeps making the same mistakes over and over again, at least those 2 times. But it is it's an amazing documentary. I did watch an interview with Ken Burns about this, and this is the first one I've watched of his. This first documentary that I've watched of his, and apparently they're all great. Apparently, if he could, I've heard the baseball documentary that he does is awesome. I have not watched it, but if you can make something as boring as shit as baseball interesting for 10 hours, well then kudos to you, my friend, because I don't understand how it could be interesting, but maybe it is. He also has other ones like there's a Civil War documentary. There's a couple other ones. I tell you what, I'm going to pick out 3 of them for this week's poll, and you tell me which one I should watch next, because I've had some friends tell me some are good and some that I really should watch, but I'm going to let you guys decide. So this week's poll is going to be, which Ken Burns documentary should I watch next? But anyways, back to Vietnam. As I'm watching this, my father, I didn't realize, for some reason, I don't know why this is, but I didn't realize that he was of age during the Vietnam War. I don't know if I just put it out of my mind or what the reason was, but as I'm watching this, there was a guy that they interviewed and he mentioned when he was born, and I was like, oh, my dad was born that year. Shit, I guess he was able to serve in the military during Vietnam. And I always knew he served in the Air Force, and I kind of really got a conversation going between him and I about that time period, what his experience was. Now, he was never in Vietnam. He actually served in the Air Force, and he was stationed in Thailand. And he was, I guess he was basically a crew chief, and he would do some mechanical work on the planes, but he would mostly just schedule the other guys on what they were supposed to do. But it still was interesting to get his perspective about this whole thing and kind of understand the time period and what everybody went through. I mean, he was over there. It'd be interesting to talk to somebody that didn't serve, that was here, because from this documentary, it really makes it seem like those times were very similar to today, and the political discord you have with different factions of the American public, and how strongly people feel and how strongly people felt then. I mean, protests were happening all over the place. And to be honest with you, it kind of reminded me of when President Cheeto took over, and there started to be protests. And hopefully, if people still feel that strongly, hopefully those protests will continue, because I think it is an important place in society. When you disagree with something, you need to voice it. And, going back to the previous episode about kneeling in the NFL, I still think that protesting has a place in America. And I think in this case, it was pretty powerful. And it's hard to see, that it's working, or if it's working. And but as we look back on the Vietnam War, it really these protests did have an impact. It may have shortened the war. I mean, the war the conflict, I guess it was pretty long to begin with, but maybe it helped shorten it a little bit. Who knows? But anyways, I very much recommend going to check it out. There's a lot of detail in it, a lot of shit. I wouldn't recommend. I started to say earlier, I was watching an interview with Ken Burns, and he was saying this is probably not a documentary you want to binge watch, and that's become the culture here when it comes to TV. I mean, people binge watch through everything. I do. When I can, I binge as much as I can, because I don't know. That's how I know a show's good. If it makes me want to keep watching for a couple hours straight, well, then it's probably a pretty good show. But this one is a little dense. It's a little overwhelming at times. I will say there have been nights where I've after watching it, I've just kind of sat there and thought about what I just saw, because it doesn't really hold back as far as showing you images of what happened there, the carnage. It just paints a big picture, and sometimes it's a little hard to take. But again, I recommend watching it. Full disclosure, I am not done with it. For some reason, I don't know what this is. Fuck you, Comcast. I got to episode 9. I have 2 episodes left. I got to episode 9, and all of a sudden they want me to pay for it. And if you know anything about me, I'm a pretty cheap bastard. And each episode's like $7. So I'm going to finish it eventually. I'm just not exactly sure how or when, but I do recommend it highly if you can find it for free. But anyways, another show that I've been watching, and I kind of wanted to bring this up because it's been over for a couple weeks now, but we kind of rail against reality TV here on the podcast, and I'm the first one to say that reality TV is shit, and it's not good for society. It's not good for me. And now I'm going to tell you about a reality TV show that I've been watching. It's called Ink Master, and it's a competition amongst tattoo artists, and basically they just compete to making tattoos and see who can be the quote unquote ink master. I will say I'm a hypocrite because I'm watching a reality TV show, but I'm really just there to see the artistic maneuvers by these artists, because they are really awesome tattoos. A lot of times, some of them are really shitty, but I like this show because, I can see all kinds of different styles of tattoos and different artistic expressions of these tattoos, and how, some of these artists come up with them and modify them, and some of the different techniques that these artists have. I really like it. I don't know what it is. I've watched it off and on throughout the past seasons. I don't know how many seasons there are, but I think this is the first season that I have watched all of the episodes. And if you haven't watched it and you're into tattoos, or you want to see how a lot of these artists do tattoos, I would recommend watching it. However, I will say the finale of these shows, of this Ink Master, is god awful. And I've seen a couple of the other, I think I've only ever seen 1 or maybe 2 of the finales before, and they are god awful. No disrespect to Dave Navarro and Chris Nunez and Oliver Peck, but pulling off a live show, and that's what they do for their finales, they're all always live. Pulling off a live show is not their strong point. I don't know that I don't know whose strong point it is, but there are people out there that can pull this off. Those guys can't. I will say Chris Nunez does it better than the other 2, but it is very rigid and very hard for the guys to not appear lifeless. I don't know how else to put it. It's just terrible. The live episode is terrible. I wish they would. I wish they wouldn't do a live episode. First off, the fucking crowd is awful. They are cheering when the hosts are trying to talk. They don't know when to shut up. And I really wish, maybe it would be better if they didn't have a live audience. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know. But there's all kinds of pandering to the crowd. They're trying to talk to them. Who likes whatever artist? And then they cheer, and then they cheer for a long time, and then it's awkward to get back into it. It's really, really bad. So maybe skip the last one and just look up who won. But I will say, like, looking at the tattoos, watching them critique them, that is their strong point, and point out, what's good, what's bad about a tattoo. I really do like watching that show. So that's another one that maybe you want to check out, maybe you don't. I recommend it. As far as some new shows that are coming up, I have started watching this show called I'm Sorry. And if you know me personally, I have been recommending this show to anybody that will listen to me, which is, like 3 or 4 people. This show, it's called I'm Sorry. I think it's on True TV. I think so. I think that's the channel. but I'm not 100% sure about that. I watch it on demand. For some reason, it popped up on my Facebook feed at one point as a sponsored. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot. So I started watching like the first couple minutes. I ended up sitting there watching a half an hour show on my phone because I literally couldn't turn it off. It was nice that it didn't have commercials. So I was sitting there watching it, and it's really funny. What it's about, the main character, she is a comic writer, and it's about her life with her husband and her daughter. Like I said, she's a comedic writer, and her writing partner is Jason Mantzoukas, which most people would probably know him from the show The League. He's Rafi. He is a great part of this show. He's really funny. But the main character, her name's Andrea, and I think that's also her name in real life. She's amazing. My wife watches this show and said to me, she's like, I want to be like her. She's witty, she's funny, she's confident, but she fucks up all the time. And it's a really funny show. It's just a half an hour sitcom. I really recommend going to watch it. I think it's 10 episodes, so it's not a whole lot of investment, but it is fantastic. If you like The League, you'll love it. If you didn't like The League, I will still say you'll like it, but I was a huge fan of The League. I really liked everything they did. I know Bubba was as well, but I'm not exactly sure why that didn't catch on more, because it really wasn't a whole lot about fantasy football. And this show, it's mainly just about her life, and again, it's her kind of fucking up, but it's really, really funny. I would definitely recommend watching I'm Sorry. I'm sure you can find it on demand, or no, probably just on demand or Hulu or somewhere like that. I don't know. Maybe True TV has an app. Everybody's got an app these days, right? But again, go watch that one. The other funny show that I've been watching lately, it's kind of flying under the radar, but I'm starting to hear more rumbles about this because it just came out on Netflix. It's called American Vandal. Now, watch the preview for this show. That's really all you need to do. Watch the preview for this show. I will give you a little synopsis of it. It's a Making a Murderer type documentary, but this is kind of a mockumentary about a kid that is accused of spray painting dicks on cars at his high school. I'll let that sink in for a second. It's a whole show about a kid spray painting dicks on cars. Now, when I first heard of this show, I was like, you know what? I saw the preview. It looks really funny. It looks like they're just trying to do... They have the same music and the same tone as a serious documentary. And they really do take this serious. It's funny. It's not going to be laugh out loud, like joke funny, but I just found myself laughing at the premise and how serious they take the show. When I first started watching this, I thought to myself, I think I got maybe 2 or 3 episodes into it. And I thought, how in the hell are they going to keep this up for 10 episodes? I was really, to be honest with you, I was like, you know what? I don't know that I can take this. And about midway through the show, it kind of shifts. And it's still funny. It's still humorous in the way, but it really starts to take itself serious. And it actually is a really well-written, well-put-together show. I was so surprised at how well this was done. It's called American Vandal. It's on Netflix. Go watch it. I cannot recommend it more. Go do it. That if I can't tell you which one to go watch first. I'm Sorry or American Vandal, but no, I can't do it. I was gonna try to, but I don't know. It's 1A and 1B. Go watch them both. You won't be disappointed. I promise you. And if you are, well, call in and leave a voicemail screaming at me how wrong I am. Another show that is not so funny, but it's about comedians. It's called I'm Dying Up Here. And this one, I haven't heard too much about it. I hope it's doing well. I don't ever look to see, what ratings are or what critics are really thinking about TV shows. I really don't give a shit about that. It's kind of word of mouth of how I get to it. But I did see the show, and what kind of brought me to it was Jim Carrey's the executive producer. But anyways, it's called I'm Dying Up Here. It's about comedians in the 70s in LA trying to get their start. They go to they go to a club. It's kind of like the Comedy Store, but it's them. This club is the way you get onto the Tonight Show. That's the whole thing, and it's about a couple different comics and how their lives kind of revolve around comedy and trying to struggle and make ends meet while still trying to, craft your art, if you will. It's not, there are some funny parts to it. I will say that, but it's not necessarily a funny show. I would say it's probably more dramatic, because it kind of shows the behind the scenes of comedians and what they go through. And from everything else that I've read about comedians, this does kind of hold up in a way that this would be, how their lives are actually lived. But part of the fascination for this show for me is just comedians and how they put together their acts and how they craft what they're going to do. I mean, for me, when I do this podcast, a lot of it's just off the top of my head. I have kind of what I'm going to talk about planned out, but I don't really have set jokes, or as you can probably tell, I don't have set jokes or really set anything of what I'm going to say when it comes to this. I just kind of go with it. What fascinates me about comedians is how they look at certain situations and they find the funny in it. They look at it and craft a whole bit about it. And I actually recently listened to an interview with Jerry Seinfeld, and what he was talking about comedy kind of struck a chord with me, that it's not about the joke in the sense that anybody can find something funny. I can say something funny about whatever, but it's what that joke rolls into and what that joke becomes and the next level of the joke. What can you do with it? That's where the genius of comedians come from. And when I'm watching this show, a lot of it is how they come up with their jokes, or not necessarily how they come up with their jokes, but just, going through their day-to-day lives and spitting out, oh, this would be a good premise or something like that. And I'm like I said, I'm insanely fascinated by comedians because I don't ever think it's something that I could do. I could never get up on stage and put together a stand-up routine. It's just not in me. I don't think so. Maybe I could, but I would love to. I would love to say that I could put together a solid 10 to 15 minutes or solid 5 minutes even of a good stand-up routine. I think that would be very exhilarating, very fun, but also very nerve-wracking, and I don't know that my heart can take it. But and that's really why this fascinates me and this really interests me. So I'm Dying Up Here. It's on Showtime. The season's over. You can go back and watch them all. Again, if you love comedy and you love comedians and you want to watch a show about this, I do recommend it. It's a really, really good one. Another show that I've been watching lately is the third season of Narcos. This is a show, if you haven't heard about it, it's on Netflix. It is about the Colombian drug lords of the late 80s, early 90s. These guys were the ones that were bringing all the coke into America. The first two seasons really centered around Pablo Escobar, and spoiler alert, he died. I don't think that really comes as a spoiler to anybody, but hopefully I didn't really ruin anything for you. But the third season kind of picks up after Pablo Escobar. We also lost a main character in the third season. One of them is no longer there because it kind of follows the actual timeline of the U.S.'s drug war. And one of them, I think, went back to the U.S. But anyways, the third season of Narcos. This show, there's a brilliance in Narcos that I'm kind of fascinated with, in the sense that most of the show is subtitled. And yet I come out of an episode thinking, or not realizing, that I read most of the episode. For me, I do find it a little bit distracting because there are scenes where I am like reading and I'm also trying to like pay attention to what's going on the screen. Maybe I'm just not smart enough for subtitles, but it is brilliant in the way that it makes you pay attention to the show. That's another part of this. While you are reading subtitles, you really can't look away. There are a lot of shows a lot of TV that I'll watch. Sometimes I'll be doing something else. I'll make dinner or be getting something or whatever. But this one, you actually have to watch the screen the entire time because a lot of it is in Spanish and I don't know Spanish. So if you know Spanish, then maybe this is the show for you because then you don't really have to pay attention to it. But it is a violent and tense-filled show. I recommend this one highly. It's kind of down on this list because some of the other shows have been a little bit better than it. The third season, it's kind of a little slow, but it's picking up. I'm not done with this one just yet. This is one that Mandy and I watched, so it's a little slower going, but we're getting towards the end of the season, and it's been really, really good this year. I'm trying to think if it is better than the first two seasons, and I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say the first two were better than this one. There's a certain element lacking in the third season. While, like I said, one of the main characters isn't there, you lose kind of a push and pull dynamic between the characters. They are so desperate to get these drug lords, and I'm sure that's the way it was back there because there was you were fighting corruption in Colombia and doing everything you could to capture these guys. But in the third season, you don't really get that dynamic anymore because it really is just the one main character. There's a couple other ones in there, so it's a little bit in there, but it's still a great show. And I still would recommend you watch it if you haven't checked it out yet, because it is pretty spectacular. The last one I want to mention real quick, and I kind of mentioned this before a couple weeks ago, is I watched The Defenders lately, or recently, I suppose, and we finished it, and it was good. Not great, it was good, but I came to realize that basically it was just a holdover until I can get to The Punisher, the next Marvel show to come out on Netflix. Sometimes you just need a dumb show where the main character just fucking kills everybody. Kind of like John Wick was. That was a great movie. Sometimes you just need that. And if you haven't watched the trailer for the upcoming Punisher show, go watch it. And go into it realizing how fucking dumb it is, some of these lines that they put in. It's really going to be stupid in the best possible way.
Yo, fuck Travis. This is End Times and fucking check it in.
So today for End Times, I'm going to do a little public service announcement because I think this is something that everybody's going to know about. So recently, the restaurant Applebee's, yeah, that's right, I'm talking about Applebee's, they announced they are going to, this is so ridiculous, they have a new promotion. It's called Dollaritas. Basically, it's a margarita for $1. That's what it is. If you haven't heard about this, go to Applebee's. It's for all of October. I haven't been there yet. I haven't tried any of these, but I just found it so dumb that they're doing Dollaritas now. Although maybe dumb is not the word for it. Maybe it's awesome that they're doing Dollaritas. But I saw some of this, and one of the articles that I read said the restaurant chain noted the drinks are available at participating locations and reminded people should drink responsibly even when drinks are $1. Yeah, I can imagine this is not going to turn out the best. I wonder if there's going to be a lawsuit about some dude going and slugging 12 margaritas and driving into a bus full of nuns. I'm curious at how this is going to turn out for Applebee's. I haven't been to an Applebee's in so long, basically because it's shit food from what I remember. Maybe I'll go back and it'll change my mind, and I will report back. I'm gonna go get some Dollaritas because why not? But I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew for the month of October, Applebee's doing Dollaritas. You heard me. Dollaritas. The number is 747-BANGING, 747-226-4464. Leave me a message. Let me know. You know what? Go get drunk on Dollaritas and leave me a voicemail. Please do that. Or send me a drunk text. I don't give a shit. You can do either one. You know, anything you want. Leave us some comments on our Instagram and Facebook and Twitter pages. Everything is PW the Podcast. PWthepodcast.com for the poll this week. I'm going to put up which Ken Burns documentary I should watch next. I'll put up three choices. So just let me know, and keep going to these pages and let me know how we're doing here, because I love the feedback. I think that's about it for this week. So have fun at Applebee's, and we'll see you next Tuesday.